now that we have our sea glass, let's go to my studio and I'm going to show you some of my treasures. I'm going to pack it in the car and let's go. Do you think I'm a little obsessed? So let's have a look at what we found at the beach today. What I normally do when I come home from beachcombing is that I empty my treasures onto a white cloth. And you might be wondering why a white cloth. And the reason being is that you can see the colors a little more clearer on a white cloth. For example, this depression peach glass color, you can see how it's not as evident in my hand. But when I put it on the white cloth, you can see it a little better. Here's a beautiful piece of brown, really nice. And this is what we call grade A sea glass. It has no nicks or chips. There are 4 grades to sea glass, and it's A, B, C, and D. For example, here's a green, and I'm going to tell you that that's a D, definite D. It's sharp edges right around. It does have some of the frosting on it, but definitely not done yet. So for sure, we'll bring that back to the sea. With my sea glass, when I'm creating jewelry, I never tumble my sea glass. I only use the grade A sea glass, which has no nicks or chips. As well, I don't drill a hole into the sea glass. I don't like the idea of putting a man-made hole in something that the ocean created. I like to keep it intact the way it was. Besides sea glass, there are other fascinating things that I find at the shoreline that I bring home. For example, my lost souls. Along the coastlines of the province of New Brunswick, there are 3,000 known shipwrecks. These are souls that could have been from one of those shipwrecks. There's another tray that I have in here that has all different odds and sods. There's a clock part, bone. There's lots of bone that washes up on shore. All become fascinating for me. I'll show you some of the rocks that I've collected at the shoreline as well, including fossils. I have some fossilized coral here. Here's another fossil. And then what I have here is what I call my holy rocks. This is an interesting piece of bonfire sea glass here. You can see that it's collapsed upon itself. Now I'm going to show you my unique treasures of sea glass. Come follow me to my table. This table represents some of the best sea glass that I have found, as well as other treasures. But I'd like to tell you a little bit about sea glass and the rarity of the colors. For example, in this little clam dish here, we have the color orange sea glass, which is the rarest color of sea glass. We also have red, which is rare. This piece here is probably worth about $100. I have the golden egg that I found at the beach. It's just beautifully delightful, and it's probably the bottom of a bottle, just judging by its thickness and by the little bit of an indentation there. Did you know that the washing machine was invented here in the province of New Brunswick? I have evidence. For example, if you look at these pieces of sea glass, you can see that they all have something in common, and that's their ridging. And the reason for that is these all come from the old washboard right here. So I imagine that the women of New Brunswick were really happy on the day that the washing machine was created and that there was a mass throwing out of these washboards. In this little clamshell, I have some peach sea glass. The origin of this color comes from depression glass. For example, this little sugar dish, made between 1930s and 1950s, it was called depression glass because it was affordable glass. So again, we're touching on a fragment of history when we get to know how to identify the sea glass that we do find at the shoreline. Everybody loves finding the blue sea glass, and I have some nice pieces here. This piece of sea glass here is actually the bottom of an eyeglass cup. But blue normally came from Noxzema, Nivea, or Pepto-Bismol bottles that we find here. We have this color of sea glass here, this lilac or amethyst color it's referred to in sea glass world. It actually didn't start its life out as this amethyst color. It's a reaction to the UV rays of the sun and the chemical that was used to decolorize the glass. The chemical is manganese that was used to decolorize the glass, and this chemical was used for a very short time period. So we can date this glass between 1880 and 1914, the outbreak of the First World War. That's because Germany was the major producer of this chemical, manganese. And of course, as a result of the war, it no longer shipped to the United States for its glass-making usage. From there on in, selenium was used to decolorize glass.